The great thing about living in the United States is that it allows you freedom of choice. If you become bored with something because it's grown old, tired, and predictable, you can choose something else. And the United States Football League is something else.
So terrible, it's like a dread disease. Nothing could be worse than when there's nothing on TV. I'd rather be a cowboy than to stare blank at the walls. I've been reborn so many times I can't remember them all. And I say, who do you want to be today? Who do you want to be? Who do you want to be today? Do you want to be just like someone on TV? Just like somebody on TV. I think I'll be a teddy boy. I think I'll be a hunk. I think I'll be a tough guy. And I think I'll be a punk. I might just be a fashion star, all dressed in pretty rags. Or perhaps I'll cross the other side and walk around and drag. Who do you want to be today? Who do you want to be? Who do you want to be today? Do you want to be just like someone on TV? Just like somebody on TV. Yourself in a pool of bliss for misery. Do you feel like a saint in artist's clothes with a rosary in your hand? Do you want to be crazy like Van Gogh, like a stranger in a strange, strange land? Would you rather push the buttons and be feared by all humanity? Or perhaps you like to be a bum? Do you want to be stupid just like me? Who do you want to be today? Who do you want to be? Who do you want to be today? Do you want to be just like someone on TV? Just like somebody on TV. Who do you want to be today? 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 Who do you want to be? Who do you want to be today? Who do you want to be?
The grand season of the United States Football League began on March 6, 1983. It consisted of 12 teams broken down into 3 divisions. There was the Atlantic with Boston, New Jersey, Philadelphia, and Washington. The Central, Birmingham, Chicago, Michigan, and Tampa Bay. As well as the Pacific with Arizona, Denver, Los Angeles, and Oakland. The playoffs consisted of 3 divisional winners and 1 wild card. However, as the days count down to the big opening weekend, there was nothing but utter sheer and panic growing within the hollowed halls of the USFL league offices. I mean, true, you had the newest acquisition in Herschel Walker was meant to give the league some pomp and circumstances, but as they transitioned from the training camps, Chet Simmons, the USFL league commissioner, grew quite suspicious of many of the USFL team owners and how they ran their organizations. On the one hand, the New Jersey Generals signing of Herschel Walker really put that club on the map, and Chicago Blitz and the Philadelphia Stars signed some impressive rookies and some reliable NFL veterans that could still produce. The Michigan Panthers signed 3 rookies, safety David Greenwood and quarterback Bobby Hebert, and wide receiver Anthony Carter, all of whom would be top NFL draft selections, but what the Tampa Bay Bandits and Birmingham Stallions put together just barely made the grade. However, the rest of the USFL bunch that really raised eyebrows were the Denver Gold and Boston Breakers, and both bought their players right on the cheap, and it showed.
Action late in the game, Denver 3rd and goal, trailing 13-7. They don't make it. And now 4th and goal. Ken Johnson's pass for Larry Canada is too far. Philadelphia holds on to win it 13-7 in Tampa Bay. John Reeves was the starter. Ricky Williams, touchdown, Tampa Bay. It went back and forth all day with Boston taking the lead, but Reeves gave it back to Tampa Bay again, this time to Eric Trevelyan. Another Tampa touchdown. Then with 10 minutes left in the game, it was up to Reeves to win the game for Tampa Bay, and he did so. 33 yards to Willie Gillespie. Nice catch as he turns around. 21-17.
Also, the Los Angeles Express's roster only consisted of really 2 players, whom were quarterback Tom Ramsey of UCLA and Mike Ray from USC, that people barely even knew at all. The Oakland Invaders? Oh, don't get me started. John Ralston, the Invaders general manager, only brought in 2 former ex-Raiders standouts, tight end Raymond Chester and defensive end Cedric Hardman. Plus, with the Oakland Raiders recently moving to Los Angeles, many found that along with the rhyming name, Raiders, Invaders, plus 2 Oakland ex-Raiders, would be a step in the right direction for that squad.
Oakland Invaders. The city joined the ranks of the newly formed USFL, but the games were pale in comparison, and really only a painful reminder of what once was.
They were there rooting for the Invaders, but they were thinking about the Raiders.
The rest of that squad was just a combination of ouch and boing. John Ralston really laid all of his responsibilities to the safety and assurance of Invader equipment manager John Daggett.
Armand's Men's Shop, the last refuge for men of good taste.
A legally blind man. According to Public Relations Director Gino Effler, the legally blind, well, he couldn't see anything unless it was 2 inches from his face. As well as the playing conditions for the Oakland Raiders, well, they consisted of high school goalposts. That's right, rusted, rotted, and peeling paint. The seasonal training accommodations consisted of staying at some flophouse, roach-infested hotel with hookers coming in and out.
What in the world is going on here?
Oh, if you got injured at the Invaders training camp and it was Monday, Tuesday, or even Thursday for that matter, well, you had to wait until Saturday because that's the day the free clinic was open. And with the best training facilities and medical care that welfare can provide, then prepare to be delighted to deluxe low-grade accommodations by being ferried from your seedy hotel to training camp in a run-down school bus that would often break down every 5th or 6th trip. And with all that man-made muscle, who needs a towing company when the players would push the vehicle to its primary destination? Now that's teamwork for you. Flew so cheap, you would think they'd be hauling a cargo plane full of rubber duck shit out of Hong Kong. Well, we were cheap, and we flew on a cheap charter, said Gary Plummer, an Invaders middle linebacker. So we're on this flight to Denver, and suddenly the plane just drops for what feels like a minute. People are screaming, holding on to their seats, and the flight attendant flew like 3 feet in the air. So I look at my running back, Arthur Waitengaunt, and he had his head sticking out in the middle of the aisle, and I couldn't figure out why. So I said, "Art, what are you doing?" I swear to God, he looked at me and said, "Well, if I'm gonna die, the last thing I want to see is pussy." Even for the 2 ex-Raider veterans, the rest of the Invaders roster was a wasteland. USFL owner Chet Simmons was alarmed by their choices for starting quarterback. You see, to operate a sports football franchise normally want to center it around familiar college football star names that would get your franchise some star power. Michigan, Los Angeles, and the Birmingham Stallions had that. You had Hebert from Northwestern State, Ramsey of UCLA, and Reggie Collier of Southern Mississippi. Both gave those teams a good foundation on offense. The other half of the USFL consisted of former NFL journeymen. He had Bobby Scott of New Jersey, who was an ex-New Orleans Saint, who often smoked cigarettes in between huddles. Johnny Walton of Boston, who was a three-time ex-Philadelphia Eagle and an ex-star of the defunct World Football League's San Antonio Wings. Oh, I'm not done yet. There was former Detroit Lion Greg Landry of Chicago, John Reeves of Tampa Bay, who was a former Philadelphia Eagles top first-round draft choice, whom was battling substance abuse issues. Oh, that doesn't top the tater, not to mention Chuck Facina of Philadelphia and Doug Williams, a former backup with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Certainly one of USFL's weak selling points, and not the way you want to promote USFL as the home of the future NFL stars of tomorrow. You see, in the established NFL, you had homegrown names with Pittsburgh's Terry Bradshaw and San Fran's Joe Montana, or even San Diego's all-time favorite, Dan Fouts, that all cultivated and grew their careers in their respectable organizations to the players that they would become today. Let's just say quarterback in the USFL, according to Stephen Earhart, the league's executive director, quote, was a real concern. And no place lacked this lack of star power more than Oakland. Chet Simmons was fuming, pacing back and forth like an expected pregnant mother, pressuring general manager Ralston to find a suitable quarterback replacement. But the name they were picking out of their hats and basically asses was Fred Basana. Which leads us all to this what the fuck moment. Who in the name of pigskin puke is Fred Basana? Well, it turns out Fred Basana was once a former University of California backup who went undrafted in the NFL, but was later released by the Buffalo Bills in 1978, then by the New York Giants a year later. He later spent the rest of his 3 seasons with the Twin City Cougars of the California Football League, where he only earned $50 a week and also worked part-time as a teacher at Marysville High, who also had another part-time job selling insurance, whom also had another small-time gig as a beer distributor. So Invaders general manager Ralston only knew Basana by association when he coached against California when he was over at Stanford, and decided to offer him a tryout. Honestly, Coach, I think I'm over it. Football isn't my thing anymore. Come on, Freddie, Ralston said. What do you have to lose? Well, Fred Basana was assured he would be receiving an upgrade of a lifetime, but was welcome on the same battered bus, the Medicare free clinic, and the inner-city shoddy playing facilities, not to mention putting on their goofy San Diego Chargers knockoff helmets with that lightning bolt and a fist logo that would think would zap your ass back into reality. And if the Roach Motel didn't discourage some, well, they decided to treat the Invaders team to the Red Lion Inn, which became the No-Tell Motel, where one of the players was notorious for having anal sex with a prostitute right outside his room. Oh, we were a beautiful mess. We'd be on that church bus, mooning people out the back windows. So we had guys like Ray and Cedric, who were actually listed as player coaches. Okay, so what they would do is they would get too drunk the night before practice, so they wouldn't practice the next day. And they would just say the next day, hell, I'm just a coach. And that was our way of saying, you're too drunk to know better. Still, with a contract earning minimum wage at $40,000 an hour, it was still too sweet for Fred Basana to pass up. He may have been a huge enigma in the football world, but boy, could he throw. He often possessed a sharp arm and clear-cut accuracy where the ball just left his hand in a snap and would often find quick contact with the receivers. Oh, he was a legitimate NFL quarterback, said Chester. Freddie could sling that ball. Well, everything about the Oakland Invaders was a little unsettling to the USFL. Oh, it was nothing, and I mean nothing compared to the Washington Federals. So on opening day, where the Federals and the Chicago Blitz had a scheduled kickoff at 1:30 p.m., there was still speculation as to whether Washington could foster a football team capable of people who could actually catch and throw footballs. You would think that a big established market like Washington that had an established football base with the Washington Redskins could build another similar strong base and juggernaut in the USFL. And everything was going in the right direction when wealthy businessman Marvin Warner was awarded the franchise. But that's when he changed his mind. They'd rather own a team in Birmingham. And that's when the ownership of the Federals transferred over to a limited partnership that only consisted of, 3 different corporations. The main majority owner was Bernhard, who actually owned a law firm and known for managing Edmund Muskie's failed presidential campaign in 1972. He too was well respected, well liked. What could go wrong in D.C.? Well, according to Bernhard, we didn't come in with enough capital. We needed more lead time and we gave up too much ground to everyone else. The engine was running us, but certainly who was running this organization when all the responsibilities turned to former Redskins assistant GM Dick Myers to run it, but he had no personal experience. And who was going to lead the Federals to the USFL's newfound glory but head coach Ray Jouch, former coach of the Edmond Eskimos, of the CFL winner of 3 straight Grey Cup appearances. Well, that's one good thing, but how he ran his laissez-faire coaching philosophy in Canada? Well, according to Willie Hawley, a Federals defensive back, you see, in Canada, everything is really relaxed. So guys come to Washington, and maybe they show up for film, maybe they don't. There was no punishment. Your stupidity is blinding us, Washington. Please turn it off. The Washington Federals certainly spared no expense by holding their training camp at the Samuel W. Wolfson Baseball Park, a very foul-smelling sinkhole complete with a crooked fence, providing free advertisement for Sonny's Real Pit Barbecue. If stupidity was a learning disability on the Federals' ownership, I know quite a few who would be getting monthly checks. Oh, it felt like a junior college, said Randy Burke, a wide receiver. A crappy one. So the wheel in this brainchild of organization certainly didn't go round and round when they retreated a first-round bus ferrying their players' equipment from Florida to Washington that broke down during the trip. So when the football camp ended, ownership suggested you find your own way back to Washington. Oh, it was their test to see how mature we are, said Mike Hohensies, the rookie quarterback from the University of Minnesota. They made it clear we had to drive back, find an apartment, find the practice facility, and learn our way around Washington in just a matter of 4 days' time. Dallas Hickman was demoted from the NFL to USFL after serving 6 seasons in the NFL, was still eager to just continue his career with the Washington Federals. So I report to RFK Stadium, enter the locker room, only to find out there is no locker assigned to me. When he asked the equipment manager, they wanted to see him upstairs. Hickman later entered GM Dick Myers' office only to receive his walking papers. Dick, you've got to be fucking kidding me. Shit, I had to come back from Florida, then walk in the locker room only to find out there's no locker? How about go fuck yourself? So with the exception of a not too bad lineup of James, Hohensies, and Joey Walters, Washington would go on to sign more players that just were too old, too fat, unpolished, and boy, uncoordinated. Ray brought in so many Canadian cast-offs. I mean, they were in Canada and remained in Canada for a reason. It's because they sucked. And when Federals owner Bernhard acquired the Federals and signed a lease to play and practice at RFK, he assumed he was granted all access to everything the Redskins had. Think again, Einstein. The Redskins balked on that offer to share facilities, and as a result, the Federals were forced to play on the rocks and gravel of something more equivalent to a backyard junkyard that was not regulation football sized. And the Federals were also guilty by the USFL of 3 crimes. Number 1, Football players no one knew or gave a fuck about. Number 2, cigarette smokers. Number 3, coke addicts. Hey, it's the 80s. Cocaine was America's cup of coffee that spread like wildfire from the Bahamas, yeah man, to the Dominican Republic and flooded the streets of the United States. Through all the drug abuse resistance education to professional sports teams, the Washington Federals still wanted to hit.
Is there anyone out there who still isn't clear about what doing drugs does? Okay, last time. This is your brain. This is drugs. This is your brain on drugs. Any questions?
That's what happens when your HR will hire anyone who will dance around uncoordinated circles saying, I got it, I got it. So before the opening day game, running back Buddy Hardman was arrested for beating a police officer. Oh, we had a lot of hoodlums. We outdrank everyone, we outsnorted everyone, we outsmoked everyone. We probably had more women than any other team. Oh, we had lots of fun off the field, but miserable when we were on it. So who was the most notorious Federals of all time? Joe Gilliam. He was a former Steelers quarterback whom had not played a single professional game at quarterback since 1975. Probably because he had a long rap sheet as a drug addict who pawned his 2 Super Bowl rings for a quick fix. So when Gilliam arrived at the airport and drove to the local TV station for an interview, he had some choice demands. He said we needed to stop at a liquor store, said Vaughn. Well, I was 24. He was an ex-Steeler. What choice did I have? He got a bottle in a brown bag, and he drank on the ride. Oh, a classy guy he was. Gilliam practically lived in his car down by the river, a 1960 Ford Falcon with bald tires, until a spot opened up down at the local crack house. Oh, I look back and realize the truth about Joe, said Victor Jackson, Federals defensive back. He didn't stay later after practices to work out. He only did so because he needed a ride to the rehab clinic. Oh, the beer must taste like I'm not going to work tomorrow because Joe was on the kegger. And one time we were flying back from a game, and Joe wasn't supposed to drink. So he had a drink on the plane, said Billy. Everyone was sleeping. And he told me he was going to talk to the coaches right then and there because he wanted to be the offensive coordinator and he knew he could do a damn good job at it too. I stopped him because he was drunk. He would have been cut right there. So with all the dark clouds casting doubts on the playing inadequacies and mismanagement of the Federals, things were looking hunky-dory for the USFL opening debut. Despite a bad news Bears-style roster and a pencil-thin or unorthodox coaching staff, and drugs being passed around like candy in the Federals' locker room, still, many gullible 38,010 fans still brought tickets for the Blitz Federals opening kickoff matchup. The day was turning out to be a historic one with Washington's Craig James and Chicago Blitz's Tim Spencer making their USFL debuts. George Allen, an ex-Redskins coach, returned back to the field that made him famous. Even third-time Grammy winner for Best Male R&B Vocalist, the legendary Lou Rawls himself, kicked off the opening day festivities, whom brought forth a slam-bang A-level a cappella national anthem.
See by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight for the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, white and blue uniforms do not belong to the Washington Federals, the Chicago Blitz.
Groundskeeper Willie even dyed the grass green to give the field a pristine pro NFL-like shine.
Lee, you were talking about that they had to dye some of the grass here. That's true. Even though the USFL is spring and summer football, we're starting in the winter. About 75 gallons of dye has been used on some of the winter burned out grass. The middle of the field has been re-sawed, and so there are special problems with football in the winter, spring and summer.
ABC headed the broadcast as a very youthful Jim Lampley, alongside now ESPN College Day Man of the Hour Lee Corso. And let's just say they were feeling quite melancholy that day.
Hello, I'm Jim Lampley, and I'll be honest with you. I will wait to see how many of you are that anxious to see football in spring.
Even Nostradamus couldn't have predicted a more worser day for football. When David Hickson hatched his idea for semi-pro football, he envisioned sunny day, sweeping the cold days away, so that the fans would be on their way to where the weather is sweet. Now it's time to drive through snow, sleet, and sludge for the day. Even the field, not fully cleaned up from the Redskins, had as many divot holes as a 9-hole city-owned golf course. Oh, it was horrible, said Hohensies. Everything about that day was horrible. Oh, but the Chicago Blitz couldn't have hired a more Bill Belichick of a guy than George Allen, whom through his NFL careers always sought to achieve every possible advantage, regardless of whether it was moral or immoral. He was quite notorious for FBI-style wiretapping locker rooms, and even went so far as to install a tinted one-way glass so he could look inside opposing coaches' locker rooms. Allen even instructed his offensive and defensive linemen to grease their uniforms with Vaseline so it would be harder for the opposition to grip. Even stewed the pot by messing with environmental controls of the opposing team's locker rooms, even giving them hell on a hot day or hell freezing over with cold temperatures on a cold one. George Allen did what George Allen felt he had to do, said George Hedleston, future general manager of the Pittsburgh Maulers. No one would dare to stop him. So to get a layout of the land leading up to opening day, he went out James Bond, supplying some low-level blitz employees with yellow USFL film staff windbreakers and sent them to do some reconnaissance work on Washington. When confronted by Federals GM Myers and Federals coach Jock as to identify who they were, they said they were sent as part of the league's film crew to tape their practices. Oh, how cute, how Patriots-like. We knew every play they were running, said Blitz assistant's coach. There were no surprises.
Already it appears that the inexperienced offensive line is having difficulty for the Federals. So the Blitz, who were pushed out of field goal range by that sack, will punt the ball away. Here are the Federals for the second time with Kim McQuilkin at the control. Greg James, wrapped up.
Now you see they're going right to James immediately again, right at him, like I said before. That was the same type of play that the Blitz used against him. It was a draw play.
And once again, they were close. Out on their third possession of the ball game.
I would not be surprised to see Holensee, number 9, start warming up for the Feds. They have not moved the ball effectively.
There's the gun, which ends the first quarter.
You know, Jim, it's obvious when you're watching a ball game that these young offensive linemen from the Feds are having a hard time with Lord, Ernman, and Lathrop and Allieu. All those guys have played.
About 19 minutes in this game, and Chicago has had the ball for 14 of those 19 minutes. The Feds have had the ball 4 times and have yet to hold it more than a minute and a half. The Federals offered very little resistance on that drive, and it is still McQuilkin in the ball game for the Federals. Another kicking situation for the Feds, and hey, it's tough when you get booed in the first half of your first ball game.
Well, you know, the fans are they're on the quarterback and they're on the coach and they're on everybody, but that's basically because they paid 18 bucks a ticket. And if I paid 18 bucks a ticket, I might boo too.
Now Corral is going to try a 51-yard field goal, which is blocked.
There's the break.
Free ball. Mike Guess, 44, is the man who was chasing the football. Jeff Brown, 36, was there also. And the Federals will have good field position for one of the first times. Federals have had 6 third-down situations, have yet to convert one into a first down, 2 of them in the Federals' territory, and the rest outside their 40. First down.
Hey, Jim, you know, and it's interesting, that play there was almost exactly the same play.
7 or 8 first downs and get 5 or 6 turnovers. Spencer on first down.
The guys in the red have a better football team right now than the guys in the white.
The half ends in futility for Washington.
Let me help a little bit. They said George Allen doesn't win here anymore. I guess they've forgotten.
You're trailing 21-0. What can you tell your team that changes things, that could change their mindset getting ready for the second half?
Well, maybe a quick kick and wait for a break. I don't know. We got to stop Chicago, and we've got to start. We'll be able to go in there this half and do a good job.
I remember people bitching, "This isn't like the Redskins," said Britt Friedlander, who covered the Annapolis Evening Capital. They were right about that. And by the time the third quarter moved on in, the fans at RFK were already pulling up to their driveways.
Here comes the ready and nine. Here comes the boys from the south. Here comes the ready and nine. How you like me now? I say, here comes the boom, ready and nine. Here comes the boys from the south. Boom, here comes the boom, ready and nine. How you like me now?
So the Federals would later finish their season at 4-14, playing mostly for the animal kingdom on attendance and endless product placement, but that's about it. So in an effort to drum up any public interest in this team, they had a t-shirt giveaway for the first 10,000 fans, but only 7,000 showed up. So during the sweaty stains of putridness of the Washington Federals, the USFL had a grand opening day for their first 4 games. Only in sunny Florida, the Tampa Bay Bandits drew 42,437 fans to watch their close 21-17 win over Boston. The Denver Gold drew even more of a crowd of 45,102 fans as their hometown team lost a heartbreaker to the Philadelphia Stars 13-7. Then over in Arizona, the desert version of the Washington Federals, the Arizona Wranglers got decapitated 24-0 by the Oakland Invaders. The Philadelphia Stars drew a 19.5 in Philadelphia, and in mathematical terms, that means 20% of Philadelphia was tuned into that game. That was good. The USFL expecting better than this first 4 in the 4 p.m. kickoff between Herschel Walker and the New Jersey Generals against the Los Angeles Express. Finally, New Jersey couldn't wait to unleash its ultimate weapon against the massive but a dismal 12,471 in attendance, where things were about to go sour in this one. Let's just say the Los Angeles Express were bad, but not bad in the sense that the Washington Federals or the Arizona Wranglers are concerned. They just had their moments. And it all starts up at the top with one of the majority owners, cable television executive Alan Harmon. He always put on a smile as a team president. He was a kind of a yes man who was always cheering after a night of drug use, of course. He had quite the Tony Montana lifestyle that many labeled him as the strung-out alcoholic Arthur version played by Dudley Moore. Oh, he'd come in, strung out, drunk, both, and start swearing at the girls in the office, said Paul Sandrock, the team's controller, and I have to send him home. The problems extended not just from the front office, but also to their facilities. You see, the Express signed a lease to play with a mammoth of an eyesore at the aging Los Angeles Coliseum that could mean one or two things. They'd either sell out monster crowds of 92,516 or play like it was one of the most emptiest USFL stadiums around. Even the coach, Hugh Campbell, assembled a 40-man roster consisted of just plain boring weirdos and miscreants from local colleges of USC and UCLA. Even starting nose guard Eddie Weaver, aka the Meat Cleaver, earned his hilarious reputation because he refused to wear jockstraps. I mean, this was supposed to be an important game, not just for the Generals, but to the Express and the rest of the USFL as a whole. Even ABC sent its finest color commentators, Keith Jackson and Lynn Swan, to cover this one. Even with Herschel Walker signed, they only managed to sell less than 14,000 tickets, but when they knew Walker was starting, 34,003 fans entered the stadium, paying between $7.40 to $11 per tickets. A handful of celebrities attended, from Wilt Chamberlain, Dionne Warwick, and Lee Majors, known for his TV work as Steve Austin in The $6 Million Man. ABC put on a TV trick, only filming spectators on one side of the field to make it appear like the game was sold out. Well, women's rights must have went out the hamper because the organization was not fully prepared to fully dress the Los Angeles Express cheerleaders. Our full uniforms never arrived for the game, said Penny Orcutt, an Express cheerleader. We wore silver boots, white t-shirts, and our own underwear. The largely male fan base seemed put off. Even going against Herschel Walker, the Generals were only listed as 1-point underdogs. That didn't help the Generals' chances because even with Herschel Walker signed, he was only with the team for a little more than a week, and even head coach Chuck Fairbanks did not do enough to get him prepared. You see, Herschel Walker's favorite formation was the I formation that he ran in Georgia, where he would run directly behind a blocking back. But when New Jersey started the game, Walker was placed not behind, but alongside fullback Dwight Sullivan. It turned out to be an uncomfortable route for him and only resulted in a 9-yard gain on his first career run. Even appearing in 15 of the Generals' offensive snaps, Walker was unproductive.
To the right side, tries to get to the outside, does.
The Express has about its team, about its secondary, is can the corners come up and hit? They're a small group of people, they're quick, but how physical can they be against a man the size of Herschel Walker?
Fairbanks failed in not overutilizing him enough in his offensive game plan, and it made for quite a boring viewing experience.
However, I did speak with Herschel Walker. He said the biggest difference between this and college ball is the caliber of play, quite naturally. He said he's not picking up his keys and not reading the holes as quickly as he did in college.
Most of the folks on the other side might be just a little quicker and maybe just a tad bigger. The first down, and Walker is back in for New Jersey. Came out for a couple of plays to get a breather. On third and short, the ball goes to Walker. And he's got the first down for New Jersey. Well, apparently he is going to play a lot, having had only 1 week to work out.
Herschel's biggest problem was he just wasn't ready yet, said Mike Stock, New Jersey's running backs coach. We put all this stuff for him, but he wasn't familiar with pass protection, checking linebackers, making route decisions, whether to stay in and back. He only had a few days to learn. It wasn't enough time. Fans wanting more Herschel only got more of quarterback Bobby Scott instead. Walker only ran 11 times in the first half, and he had his playing time reduced to only 5 snaps in the second half.
Walker, who started the ball game, does not start the second half of play. Standing there on the sideline.
Keith Herschel Walker has not been playing that much in the second half. I spoke with him at the end of the first half. He said he felt fine physically, but I just talked with Bobby Scott, the quarterback. He says Herschel's a little bit tired. They are going to save him until later in the ball game.
Keith, Bobby Scott earlier said that Herschel might have been a little bit tired, but I wonder if Herschel was on the sideline, looked over to the coach and said, I think I'd like to play a little bit more.
And Herschel Walker not in there. He has not played a whole lot in the second half. Obviously, Herschel Walker is in the New Jersey lineup.
The Generals scored a touchdown that brought them to 5 points of 20-15. Generals coach Fairbanks had his offense onto the field to attempt a 2-point conversion. This was a perfect moment for Herschel Walker, who could fly against this paper-thin defense. However, Fairbanks did not put him on the field. Instead, Larry Coffey, the halfback, was brought into the play, and quarterback Scott's horrible pass to Coffey was intercepted.
On Bobby Scott, Ron Sewell coming on a linebacker blitz from the inside, hit the New Jersey quarterback before Bobby had a chance to get rid of the ball.
You kidding me, Coach? Herschel Walker once averaged 5.3 per carry during his college years at Georgia. That's more than enough for a safe score. New Jersey Generals were on the move, putting together a great final drive, and with a 3rd and 3 at the Los Angeles 5, Fairbanks once again had Herschel viewing from the sidelines. Instead, Coffey, whom was 3 inches shorter and 24 pounds lighter, not to mention slower than Walker, was put in his place and sacked. And with only 57 seconds left, the Generals faced a dreaded final 4th and 12 from Los Angeles 14. Scott was behind center, fullback Maurice Carthon was situated behind Scott, and there, standing at the top of Herschel Walker's main I formation play, in red and white, was Coffey. So Scott fakes the handoff, rolls right, and rushes his throw to wide receiver Larry Brodsky. Catches it, juggles it, but runs out of bounds before the first down marker. Even the Generals' play-by-play man was flabbergasted at what he saw.
Keith, there we see it again, what I was talking about.
Well, where did his foot go out of bounds? Now, that's a question. He turned around on the sidelines. The one thing I haven't been able to see, if his foot hits a chalk, when he turned around over there, he's out of bounds where his foot hit, right?
Well, he's out of bounds where his foot hits.
Now, he's down there. You would mark where the ball is. But you see that he's right on the chalk, and I don't know but what his foot might not have been on the chalk when he made that spin. We ought to go back and look at that again. Go back and look at this play. Now, see, Brodsky's got the ball.
He turns there.
He's down.
He has the first down all the way.
They didn't make it. Game was over. New Jersey lost, with Herschel Walker walking back not angry or frustrated, but just confused. Confused as what to his involvement was what this team was exactly. His final stats were unforgettable. 16 carries for 65 yards. For the MVP of that game was handed off to Tony Bodie with 13 carries for 77 yards, catching 5 passes for 49 yards, including an 11-yard TD reception. Tony Bodie became the Los Angeles Express's 12th round pick out of Montana State, who was once a Division I AA All-American. So for one moment in time, Tony Bodie stood in the limelight, having outperformed one of the top college rushing backs of all time. This would not mark the end of the Herschel Walker USFL story, as he would go on to carve quite a name for himself there with the Generals, while Tony Bodie would vanish like a fart in the wind. And that was the coolest thing, Ramsey said, in the USFL, because Wannabees would become somebodies.